Alright, so before I put the final wall up, I wanted to talk about a few things. So the reason why the framing is really important here instead of just putting the plywood right onto the bare metal is, one, because I can hide the wires behind it much easier. I can just run the wires right in between here and there's no issues. And the second reason is because wool insulation needs to be able to breathe. So this is why I'm not doing a vapor barrier, why I'm not putting any foam insulation in between these pieces. Where the plywood goes from here, there will be this bit of a gap here so that air can get through and allow the wool insulation to dry out if it gets moisture. It is naturally mold and mildew resistant, and if you look under here, there is a gap so air can get through. So essentially we have an air barrier rather than a vapor barrier with plastic. And so this wall and this wall are going to hold floating cabinets. So I did use a better quality, a little bit of a thicker plywood. This is 1/2-inch plywood for both of these. And then this is just really crappy 1/4-inch plywood, if you would call it that. It's all been painted with a polyurethane sealant to protect it from getting moisture on it. And this is just going up here over the bed. There's not going to be any cabinets attached to this. This is where our heads go, so I really didn't want to have a cabinet or anything in the way. I may attach a few things to the wall, but it's not going to be holding any substantial weight. So that's why I felt okay with using this really cheap, thin plywood material. Alright, so I got the last one up. Now, if you have an NV or if your van has these wire looms, you know how much of a pain they are to work with. These wires go to like the tail lights, the brake lights, and I don't know why they have them here and not actually like inside of here. It's such a pain to work with. So this was the best that I could do. This back corner was the hardest spot. Now, aside from covering all of this with the wall covering, which is going to cover the wires, I am also going to put a trim on the areas that there are not cabinets. So there's going to be trim going back here as well as up here, just to kind of blend these imperfections and make it look a little cleaner. All right, first layer, that's done. I'm gonna put another layer of a thinner insulation up here and it'll line up really well right here. And then this section is just gonna have the one. right, that is looking good. Nice and solid. This will connect really well. There won't be much of a seam. All right, so now I just need to make sure all of the walls are prepped and ready for the fabric. And right here, you can see this is just uneven, and it's just how the van is made. Nothing is ever even in these vans. So what I'm gonna have to do is cut this framing piece off here, potentially even above where this screw is. And what I'll likely do is I'll just drill the plywood directly into the metal just so it is even, because you can see that the framing here is what is making this stick out. So I'm gonna have to do that for this piece, and I may even have to do it for the piece over here because this is a little low. May have to cut it up, and we'll see what we have to do in order to get this to lie flat. Now, before I do put the fabric on the walls, I am gonna go around with some rust preventing paint and cover up any areas where I've created scratches during the install of everything else. It's still sticking out. I feel like I gotta take a little off of this so that it can sit back there better. And I may want to take this piece up a little as well. That I took too much off of that corner. Alright, so it's not the prettiest thing in the world, and I did take a little too much off of this corner here, but I was able to use the same hole in the metal that was on the framing, that held the framing in, to drill the plywood right into the metal. So, and that's solid. I did have to do a second hole right next to it because I missed the first time. And I know this sucks that there's this little bit of a gap, but it really shouldn't show based on the material that I'm using. It's pretty flat, so I think it'll cover this really well. It's better to have a gap like this than for this to be protruding like 1/2 inch. So